There's a reason the story of a garden stands at the opening of Scripture. Before laws, before kings, before nations or temples, the Bible begins with a place of life, beauty, order, and intimacy between God and humanity. The Garden of Eden is not introduced as a myth meant to entertain, nor as a puzzle meant only to be solved, but as a memory written into the spiritual imagination of humanity. It is a story that feels older than history and closer than memory. When people across cultures speak of a lost golden age, a sacred beginning, or a paradise now beyond reach, they're often echoing themes that sound remarkably similar to Eden as we move slowly through Genesis together. We will notice that Eden is not only a place in Scripture, but a pattern. Trees of life appear again and again. Sacred rivers flow through many ancient stories. Serpents, temptation, forbidden knowledge, exile, and longing recur across religious traditions that developed far from ancient Israel. This raises a quiet and important question. Why does the garden story resonate so deeply across the world? This is Bible Scope, your place to find light, find truth, and find purpose. If this journey speaks to your heart, like the video and subscribe to walk through Scripture with us. Genesis introduces Eden with careful simplicity. God plants a garden, places humanity within it, and provides everything needed for life. The language is peaceful and intentional. Humanity is not created wandering or struggling, but situated, entrusted, and sustained. Work exists, but it is meaningful rather than burdensome. Relationship exists, but it is unbroken. God walks with humanity. Creation responds with abundance. At the center of the garden stand two trees. One is described as the tree of life. The other is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. These are not random details. They are theological symbols embedded in narrative form. The tree of life represents life received as a gift, sustained by relationship with God. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil represents moral autonomy, the desire to define reality on one's own terms. The presence of both trees tells us that humanity was created with choice, not coercion. When we step back and listen carefully, we discover that many world religions and ancient traditions carry echoes of these same themes. In Mesopotamian literature, sacred gardens appear as places where gods dwell and where immortality is possible but guarded. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, a plant of life exists that can restore youth, yet it is lost to a serpent before it can be used. The story does not match Genesis in detail, but the pattern is familiar. Life is present. Loss occurs. A serpent plays a role. Humanity is left longing. In ancient Persian thought, there is the idea of a primeval paradise, a perfect creation disrupted by evil, followed by a long struggle to restore what was lost. The word paradise itself comes from an ancient Persian term referring to a walled garden. This linguistic detail reminds us that the idea of sacred space marked by harmony and protection was widely shared across the ancient world. In Hindu traditions, early ages of the world are described as times of truth, harmony, and closeness to the divine, followed by gradual decline. Humanity begins in innocence and unity, then moves into fragmentation. While the theological frameworks differ significantly, the shared sense of loss is striking. Something good once existed. Something was fractured. The present world is not as it was meant to be. Even in Buddhist thought, which does not speak of a creator God in the same way, there is recognition of a fundamental human problem rooted in desire and ignorance. Suffering enters through grasping at what is forbidden or misunderstood. Liberation involves awakening, restraint, and a return to right perception. Though the symbols differ, the human experience described resonates with the Genesis account of temptation and consequence. The serpent itself is a powerful symbol across cultures. In some traditions, serpents represent wisdom, renewal, or immortality. In others, they symbolize chaos, danger, or deception. Genesis presents the serpent as crafty, intelligent, and disruptive. It is not evil in a monstrous sense, but dangerous in its subtlety. This complexity allows the serpent symbol to echo widely. Across religions, the serpent often stands at the boundary between knowledge and danger, insight and downfall. Genesis tells us that the serpent questions God's words, not with force, but with suggestion. This pattern appears again and again in human spirituality. The temptation is rarely to reject the divine outright. It is to reinterpret divine intention, to suspect that boundaries exist to limit rather than protect, to believe that fulfillment lies just beyond obedience. The expulsion from the garden is one of the most emotionally charged moments in Scripture. Humanity does not merely lose a place. It loses direct access to unbroken life. The ground becomes resistant. Relationships become strained. Death enters the human experience. Yet even here, Genesis remains restrained and compassionate. God clothes humanity. God continues to speak. God does not erase his image from humanity. This sense of exile resonates deeply across cultures. Jewish tradition speaks often of exile, both physical and spiritual. Humanity lives east of Eden, longing for restoration. In Islam, Adam's descent to earth is understood as a test and a beginning of human responsibility. The sense of having come from somewhere higher, somewhere closer to God, remains strong. In ancient Greek philosophy, particularly in the works of Plato, there's the idea that the soul remembers a more perfect reality. Learning is described as recollection, a remembering of what was once known. Though this is not the same as the biblical account, the intuition is similar. Humanity senses that the present world is not the original home of the soul. What makes Genesis distinct is not simply that it contains these themes, but how it frames them. Eden is not an illusion to escape, nor a cycle to be endlessly repeated. It is a real beginning that points toward a real future. The Bible does not end in a garden lost forever. It ends with a city garden restored, where the tree of life appears again, bearing fruit for healing. This reveals something profound about God's character. God is not only the creator of beginnings, but the redeemer of endings. He does not abandon his creation to decay. He commits himself to its restoration. The echoes of Eden across world religions suggest that humanity shares a collective memory of loss and a collective hope for renewal. Genesis offers a framework that makes sense of both. From a literary perspective, the garden functions as a template for understanding human longing. We desire harmony with creation. We desire moral clarity. We desire intimacy without shame. These desires do not come from nowhere. Genesis suggests they are rooted in how humanity was first made. When people across cultures imagine paradise as a garden, it reflects something deeply human. Gardens require care. They represent cooperation between human effort and natural provision. They are places where chaos is restrained and life is cultivated. Eden is not wilderness, nor is it a city. It is a meeting place between God, humanity, and creation. Theologically, this matters. It tells us that the goal of human existence is not domination or escape, but faithful presence. Humanity was created to dwell, to tend, and to listen. When that calling is distorted, the consequences ripple outward. When it is restored, life flourishes. Genesis does not claim that other religious traditions are merely copies or corruptions. It presents itself as revelation, offering clarity rather than competition. The shared motifs across cultures can be understood as evidence of a shared human condition. Humanity remembers paradise. Humanity knows temptation. Humanity feels exile. Humanity longs for return in Christian understanding. This longing is ultimately fulfilled not by returning to Eden as it was, but by moving forward into a restored creation. Jesus is often portrayed using garden imagery. He prays in a garden. He is mistaken for a gardener after the resurrection. These details are not accidental. They signal continuity. The story that began in a garden is being healed through faithful obedience where the first humans failed. As we listen to Genesis carefully, we're invited not to flatten its meaning, but to deepen it. Eden is not merely about the past. It is about identity. It explains why humanity feels at home nowhere and yet longs for belonging everywhere. It explains why stories of paradise persist across time and culture. What does this reveal about God? He is generous, relational, and purposeful. He creates not out of necessity, but out of love. He respects human freedom even when it leads to pain. He remains committed to restoration. What does this reveal about humanity? We are created for communion, easily deceived, deeply nostalgic, and profoundly hopeful. Reading Eden alongside global traditions does not weaken Scripture. It strengthens our understanding of its depth. Genesis speaks into a universal human experience with clarity and restraint. It does not shout. It invites reflection that, as we walk away from the garden story, we do not leave it behind. We carry it with us. Every longing for justice, beauty, and peace is an echo of Eden. Every story of temptation and loss reminds us of its warning. Every hope for renewal points us forward. As we've walked through this passage, what truth stood out to you? How might it shape the way you live today? If this exploration helped you grow, like the video and subscribe, your journey through the pages is just beginning.